So my name is Bobby Gaudreau. I'm the Vice President of Sales for IMN. So this is a presentation that I did a couple of months ago at the Digital Dealer Conference. I've updated it a little bit. But what we're going to run through, and really the way that I set this up is to really kind of break this into three parts. So we're going to define behavioral, personalized marketing strategies and concepts, introduce and talk a little bit about really the three tenets to execute all of that. So I didn't have a chance to make it in yesterday, but the presentations I heard today, a lot of good stuff. So I'll introduce some ideas on how to execute this. And then I've got a couple of case studies. Some of them are completely outside of the realm of automotive, and then another one is based on some information that we've done on a beta test with some analytics. So in no way, shape, or means do I want it to be a sales pitch, but it's some pretty interesting information that I hope you find helpful. So with the exception of some of the data I'm going to share at the end of this, I've got no more bullets in this presentation, so that's the good news. The bad news is I tend to get going fast, so if I get going too fast, just feel free to raise your hand, tell me to slow down. I have some cheat sheets here to keep me honest, and there's a few that tell me to slow down. So with that said, before I kind of get into the objectives here, I just wanted to introduce kind of three concepts. So if you remember nothing else for the rest of the presentation, hopefully these three concepts are something that you take away with. They're kind of call them an analogy or a metaphor, everything email marketing. So the first one revolves around a dry cleaner. So raise your hand if you have used a dry cleaner. Now raise your hand within the past, or keep your hand up if in the past 10 years you've moved to it, not like 10 states away, but in a general direction. Now, how many people actually drove out of their way to continue to go back to that same dry cleaner? And I mean, I see a lot of smiles and nodding heads out there. I'm actually 10 minutes ago just signed a P&S to sell my house. I'm going to be moving about 50 miles away, but I've been using the same dry cleaner for the past 5 years. And I just drop it off. I'm usually on the phone. I don't have to say anything to him. He knows how I want my shirts done. If I forget my wallet, I can pay the next time I'm in there. So it's that level of personalization. And that's what, as consumers, we want. We want to kind of be in that type of environment. So kind of key metaphor analogy number one. The second one is thinking about Google and kind of the lenders at a bank. And so a lot of awesome stuff that we heard in the last presentation. And I mean, I had no idea what they're going to talk about, but it really teed up a lot of the stuff I'm going to introduce today. But if you're going to refinance your house, if you're going to get a loan, how you have acted as a consumer in terms of paying your bills or not paying your bills is going to impact your credit score, which subsequently will impact how favorable your loan is. It's the same idea with Google and the ISPs. If you're out there, sending out poor content, if you're spamming your customers, if you're sending out things that people aren't reading, these are all things that Google and the ISPs are paying very, very close attention to. So when it comes down to cash in your equity, you can be in a lot of trouble. Same thing as if you try to go get a loan on a house for $1 million and you're in bankruptcy. And then the last one here is with Las Vegas, is the house always wins. We just learned in the last presentation all of the changes that Google is making to their algorithms. And so the days of over-engineering SEO on sites and trying to beat the system is not going to work. So Google right now is actually penalizing companies that are trying to do that. So very similar to going to Vegas. It's just know what you're in for and understand that they're always right. So with that said, before we really jump into the meat of all of this, is kind of talk a little bit about three objectives, and I'm going to try to address in this first section of the presentation. So. The first thing here is talking about colliding forces, and it's ironic, as everyone in this room is probably involved directly or indirectly on creating some kind of campaigns for your dealership to try to reach out to customers. And you can be in trying to figure out what kind of content, how do we want to data mine the information in our CRM, and then you go check your email in your inbox and you're annoyed because you just got inundated from all sorts of other companies. So we're always on this balancing act of trying to figure out how do we get to customers and at the same time getting annoyed or maybe sometimes happy about how other companies are trying to get us or retain us as customers. So that leads me to the next part is, and again, I'm not suggesting I'm going to have all the answers for these questions. If I had the answers for all these, I wouldn't be here right now. But I want to start a dialogue and get people thinking in these terms and challenging you to think in these terms as you're coming up with your marketing plans or you're executing various marketing strategies. So the idea here is we all want information. We want information how we want it and when we want it, but we don't necessarily want to feel like we're being force-fed or spoon-fed that information. And we want to really get to that one-to-one relationship, that concierge-type treatment. And, it's the good analogy is Norm from Cheers. It's, everyone knows his name. He walks into the bar. He has the same seat. He gets the same beer. And that goes back to that dry cleaner, metaphor that I had shared before. So why is this important to all of you? Is the best way to really engage and influence your customers is to be where they're at. In a previous life, one of my clients, or it was a client of the company that I worked for, he had a saying that you got to fish where the salmon are. And someone was saying today there's 60,000 people in his database. And I'm sure some of you have databases that are bigger, some of them are smaller. The point is you've got all of this customer information. And all these people are at different places in their buying cycle. They're at different places in their relationship with you. So it's having the ability, and it exists out there today, to understand and analyze where your customers are at so you're fishing in the right hole. So you're not necessarily just kind of always casting that wide net and just hoping something takes a bite. It's the idea of fish where the salmon are. And we'll talk about some strategies on A, how to figure that out, and B, how to, more importantly, execute on that. But it should also be important to you because your competitors are trying to find your secret fishing holes, and they're trying to come in the back door and try to steal the salmon from you. So it's getting to a point from the old days of just some wild-ass guesswork to making from educated decisions to letting data drive the decisions and telling you where and when to go. So why is this important to customers? So right now there's probably arguably too many choices. There's too much out there, and we're all part of the noise. So you're trying to get out some service specials or some lease specials or let people know what you're doing within the community, and you're competing with me. You're competing with everyone else out there. And it wasn't too long ago that there were really just 3 places we could go get information. You had a few TV channels, and you got the radio, and then you had the newspaper. But now, from a TV perspective, you've got all sorts of specialization with everything. You've got the golf channel, you have the NFL channel. I live in Boston. If I happen to relocate to Chicago and I was watching ABC and they weren't covering the Patriots game, even 5 years ago, I'd be out of luck. Now I can just get, a package and I can see every single game. And I can DVR it. So if I'm going out to dinner or I'm meeting my buddies at a bar, I can go home and watch the game afterwards. From a radio station, I couldn't tell you the last time you heard static on a radio. I mean, I've got so many channels on my radio now, I don't even know what half of them are. And then from getting news, I still read a newspaper because I just like the process of it, but I rely on news. I mean, I've got a lot of feeds that are set up automatically, so as consumers, we can self-select, where and when and what kind of information. So that's the good news and the bad news because we're competing with all of this information. So a couple of examples here, because it really comes down to that personalization. So just a couple of examples, and this isn't necessarily in cascading order, just 3 examples how different types of companies utilize personalization. So I'm going to assume that everybody in this room has probably not only made a purchase, at least been on Amazon, let alone make a purchase on it. Same thing for Netflix. And we've just gotten used to the fact that when you go on, it's customized to you. So all of us in the room could all simultaneously log into Amazon.com right now, and all of us would probably have a different type of experience based on what we did before. Same idea with a Netflix. Two companies out here, and just in full disclosure, the company LivePerson is a company I used to work for. These are companies that focus in on specialization, but kind of in a real-time effort. I'm sure a lot of you here use chat on your website. LivePerson was kind of the pioneering company for chat. Work with a lot of big Fortune 500 companies. So right now is one of their big competitors. They're actually now owned by Oracle. But the idea behind this personalization is when customers go to websites and they're trying to make a purchase at Patagonia, or you're trying to do online banking at Bank of America and you're running into issues, their software comes in and assists that. And I'm sure a lot of us have experienced that on these various sites. And I bring that up because this is all just becoming ingrained in what we do as customers and how we engage with other types of customers. I mean, a great use case with LivePerson is with Bank of America. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, Bank of America realized that about 60% of all the phone calls that went into their call center were people who couldn't remember their username and password. And that's pretty true for pretty much any bank anywhere. And so we probably have been there before. You get stuck in an IVR, you talk to someone, I say I grew up on Deer Run Lane, my mother's maiden name is Kelly, and then they remind me of my password, and I'm on my way. And that whole process takes 15, 20, 30 minutes. So it's annoying for us as consumers. It's also annoying for Bank of America because 5 or 6 years ago, the person helping you reset their password, or your password, or mine in that case, was someone who had just graduated from college. They had just gotten their Series 7. They were supposed to be selling financial products, and instead they're helping a dope like me try to remember my username and password. So now they just set up simple rules in the system where when they realize that someone is trying to do something and they're having trouble, they pop up a button that says, hey, it looks like you're trying to log into your account and having trouble. Would you like online help? And you click that button, and now you're routed to someone in their call center, and all they do all day long is just help people log into their system. The first month Bank of America did that, they saved about $1 million a month in call deflection costs. So again, that's not necessarily relevant to how you're going to be running your service department, for example, but it's just a great example of what people are doing every day and how they're just getting so used to this level of one-to-one type communication with their customers. And then the last one, is anyone familiar with this company, Highlight? So there's South by Southwest, this is where Twitter, came onto the scene a number of years ago. It's every year in Austin. So there's this company, Highlight. I don't know a lot about it. I just happened to be reading an article about it, and it was very appropriate for this to kind of just show the different levels of personalization. So it's an app, from what I understand, you can get onto your phone, and so if I downloaded it onto my phone, it would pull in where I went to college, where I went to high school, what sports teams I like, what books I've read. Again, I would be self-selecting into this app. But at any rate, then I could be in Chicago last night, and I might be sitting at the bar having a beer, and it could make recommendations that, hey, there's somebody 2 blocks down that you went to high school with, and maybe you want to go connect with them. So again, it's a little spooky. But again, it was really supposed to come on with a splash, from what I understood at the South by Southwest, and by the fact that maybe everyone's sick of raising their hand, but the fact that no one raised their hand, maybe this is a little too much for people right now. Maybe we're not ready for that. But in either case, whether we want to have one other point though. So just imagine, people say, God, that is weird, but imagine if though you went to Amazon tonight to go buy a book, and it didn't have those recommendations, or you went to Netflix and it didn't tell you, you'd probably be annoyed. We've just gotten so accustomed to it. And I know myself, how much wallet share did Amazon take away from Blockbuster and Borders, because I ended up buying it through them and not going to those places, which I had my Blockbuster card, I had my Borders reward, and both of those companies are nail salons now, or different places in malls. So when we look at this, though, it is understanding, and this is probably a reoccurring theme that I've heard. You're going to hear it now, and you're probably going to hear it again. Is not all customers are equal. And this slide, the way it was built, was wrong. So what I wanted to do is have people guess what have the cars not over the right people's heads. But I mean, without even putting these up, these are in order. But I could have asked and have everyone written on a piece of paper, what do you think each group's, or the family drives and the businessman drives and the construction worker drives, and we'd all know it. But it's how many dealerships are out there that are just trying to treat all these people the same. And when that comes across as content, that's not interesting to people. That's not relevant to people. And that has a lot of downward pressure and negative pressure to anything else that you're going to try to do down the road. So really working it backwards now is understanding all these concepts that we see every day without really even realizing what's going on. And it all really starts with the cookies. So you can't personalize. And Amazon can't personalize, and Netflix can't personalize if they don't at least have a semblance of what the behavioral patterns are. So cookies aren't necessarily these crazy programs. They're really just text files and IDs that get attached to us when we visit certain websites. And it's to be used later on to retrieve that information or to do callbacks to a server when someone's on the site. That allows a Bank of America to understand who's having trouble logging into their site, and are there agents available to help that person out, and then extend an invitation accordingly. But then the more cookies you kind of get the cookie sheet, the more information you get, and then the smarter you can get, and the more personalized that happens. And again, not to be parochial here, it's probably completely obvious, but there's three main ways that businesses or companies or marketing departments utilize cookies. There's a lot, but you can kind of put them into three buckets, and one is statistics. So it's understanding, how many people, how long were they there, how come they came to that site. It's used to store information. So, if you have a wish list or, a shopping cart, the cookies allow that to happen, and it's very effective in customer service and e-commerce to help people get over the goal line to achieve their goal. Two examples of kind of cookies in that prioritization in processes. So Overstock.com cookies the crap out of their websites, and there's certain places on an Overstock website that are loss leaders for them. If they just sold cameras, they'd be out of business. They make all their money in outdoor furniture and jewelry. And so the jewelry section in particular, at certain times of the year, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they've got huge spikes to traffic on their website. And so what they do is they really understand where people are coming in from and what their patterns are, and then they start to prioritize them. So as people are on the site and they're exhibiting behavior that they need help, or they're going to abandon the website and they want to engage those people, they'll prioritize based on the cookie information that's getting passed to them. So they'll know, for example, that people from specifically the Northeast, from the Chicago area, from Southern California, convert at a much higher level than someone from other parts of the country, than say maybe the Pacific Northwest. And I mean, that's not to make fun of someone in the Pacific Northwest, that's just the way it happens to be. And by the way, they also spend exorbitantly more money. So when you kind of the supply and demand are butting heads, that allows the cookies allow in Overstock.com to prioritize the people that they want to help first. Another great example is Bluefly.com will color code their customers. So Bluefly is a place that's a retailer for kind of high-end clothing. I might go to Bluefly, once a quarter and buy $400 worth of clothes, but I return $350 of it consistently. And you may go once a quarter and you buy $400 worth of clothes and you never return anything. So after a while, they understand that about both of us and our pattern, our buying behavior. So maybe 6 months later, we both hit the website at the same time. Our experiences are going to be completely different. They're not going to kick me off the site, but they're not going to put any offers. They're not going to put any specials. They're kind of want to just get me off there because I lose money for them. Versus you, because you're spending all this money and you're a good customer, you're going to get the white glove treatment. So, and then as we continue to cookie things, now you can segment information. And to a degree, you have the ability to do this now within your DMS systems, within your CRM systems, to data mine information. But this really becomes the stuff that's working in the background to start to organize this for you. So then that we move into really the algorithm. So we heard a lot about the algorithms in the last presentation, but behind every successful or behind every positive experience that you have on a website is likely a successfully written and executed algorithm. And really, an algorithm is nothing more than a program that is written and the computer executes it. It's just a step-by-step process on what you need that to do. So, Google is probably the best example of an algorithm that we all probably use every day that seems to work pretty well, and it's pretty complex. But I could write an algorithm when I leave here tonight to go back to the airport. So I could write the rental car algorithm. I leave here, get in my rental car, drive to O'Hare, drive to the Hertz, terminal, get in the shuttle bus, go to Terminal B, and go home, and just step by step by step. Or I could have the taxi cab algorithm, where I wave down a cab and go there, or the walking algorithm, where I go to here and I walk to O'Hare. So, again, the common thing here is that it's all the same goal. It's getting me from here to the airport. But based on a lot of factors, monetary costs, opportunity costs by time. I'm obviously not going to walk to the airport, but all those things have a different impact on what decision I would make. So these are all decisions that are happening behind the scenes. So it's understanding those strengths and those weaknesses. So behavioral targeting and action. So this is not my iGoogle site, but mine doesn't look very different than this. My wife's, in contrast, is pretty clean. She just has a few things on there. But how I engage in Google, and because I've got a lot of stuff crammed on there, and I've got my email, and I've got feeds for the Red Sox, I've got feeds for the Patriots, I've got feeds for the Bruins, I've got different news sites, a joke thing. Google now understands when I'm on other places within Google or in different places, my capacity to or my threshold to withstand a lot of stuff at me is higher than, say, my wife, whose is a lot less. And again, that doesn't mean I'm right or she's wrong. It just means that's how it is. And so we have different experiences based on how we're engaging in other elements. Another great example is, it's not just Yahoo. It's, different sections within Yahoo. And, have no doubt about it, is, how you're engaging in these different areas. It's all that stuff is getting mashed together. And one of a great example of personalization and a company that just, I think, does a brilliant job of that stickiness stuff is Nike and how they work with Apple on this. So I'm a big runner, and I wear my Nike shoes, and I'm pretty loyal to Nike. And I did at one point, I logged into the Nike website, and I had my homepage there, and what that allows me to do is go in and I can say, hey, I ran 5 miles this morning, and it's just drawing me back to the website, almost on a daily basis. But they are capturing all of that information on me. The fact that it's now hooked up with Apple and I can now download all that stuff, it makes it even stickier. And now, wouldn't you know it? Because Nike knows I live in the Northeast, and when it gets cold, and I might start seeing ads that are for Nike pants, like long running pants or gloves. And in the summertime, coincidentally, I start seeing things for shorts and T-shirts. Now, if I lived out in Portland, or obviously Chicago is going to be a weather very similar to Boston, but if I was in Southern California, it would be appropriate to my geolocation. But again, 3 places, 3 brands that we all know well, and just things that we just, I don't know, I'm going to say take for granted, but don't really think a lot about how cool this is working in the background. So, is this weird? Probably a little bit, but again, it's not changing, because the customers that are starting to buy their first cars now, this is how they're growing up, and we've probably become more accustomed to a lot of this stuff than we realize, or frankly maybe than we like to admit. But there's just people are used to spilling their guts online. People are used to having pictures up there that you frankly, wish you didn't put up online. People are used to just, it's really kind of an open book. But at the same time, a lot of the data shows that, the millennials take a lot more time, to make a purchase. They are really engaging in all these different forums and getting feedback from their friends. So again, it's this is the new kind of the new paradigm shift, if you will. So switching gears a little bit. So any questions on on that stuff? Good. I was thorough. So what I want to focus here, because I think it gets a little long in the tooth to talk about data mining and all of that. I'm making the assumption that people are doing that now and they've got a good handle on that. But I want to talk a little bit about really the three key pillars to all of this. And so it's content, it's delivery, and it's analytics. And they're all equally important, but none of them are mutually exclusive. And sometimes when I go through this part of the presentation, I say, okay, the most important thing is content. And then I get to delivery and I say, well, actually delivery is more important, because if you've got content and people aren't reading it, what's the point? But then if you're sending something out and you can't get to the inbox, what's the point? And then with the analytics, if you can't understand what they're doing, what's the point? So I want to run through a couple of concepts through all of these. So when we think about content, kind of three rules of thumb is ask yourself the question: is it relevant? Is it timely? And is it engaging? And relevant, that can be a relative term. But I mean, I just put up, there's just so much out there. Up in the left-hand corner, as I'm trying to represent here, there's just, from a geolocation, there's the whole world out there. You're getting content from everywhere. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're, a certain age group, different activities that you're involved in, the seasonality, all of these things have a huge role in the type of content that is interesting at any given point in time. So I guess the main question is, I think subconsciously we almost ask the question, if I look at this, is this a good use of my time? Does this respect my time? I've got an opportunity cost here. I'm going to open up this email, or I'm going to read this article, and because I'm doing that, there's something else I could be doing, and I'm not. So does it respect my time enough that when I see it again, I'm going to read it and I'm going to pick it up again? The second thing is, is it timely? So, are you talking about things that are, important? Are you doing, a snow tire sale at the wrong time of the year? Are you, hammering a whole bunch of people that just happened to take advantage of a lease last month, and now there's a better lease this month, and you're throwing it in their face unintentionally? We did at IMN, we do a lot of work with Volvo, and a number of years ago when they launched the new S60, we kind of worked with them on a whole campaign on putting in articles in the newsletter month over month that built up a lot of momentum and interest in the car. So when we were 12 months out, the articles weren't written that, hey, this car is going to be available for delivery next month. It was just the high-level teaser articles. But we really tracked that and saw high levels of engagement with that. And then when the car was ready to take orders on and ready for delivery, these stores had some pretty decent customer databases that they could target on. And then probably the most important thing here, though, is it engaging? Is it something that people are looking at? And it's the Nike example. Nike, for me personally, is very engaging. I go there multiple times a day, despite the fact I'm not going to buy anything, but I'm on their site and they've got my eyeballs. So is your website, is your marketing material, whatever it might be, engaging to your customers? It's the analogous of the B-backs. From an analytical standpoint, I'm not going to spend a lot. Okay, I'm keeping my eye on the time here. I'll dive a little bit into what we learned from analytics. I could spend the next 2 hours, which I don't think anyone would want me to do, talking about analytics. We have created a whole business intelligence division within our company, so I'll share some stuff that I think is interesting. But again, what we learned in the last presentation is, you got to at least understand at the very basic who's opening it, who's clicking through, where are they clicking. So open rate, if you think of it this way, open rates are probably one of the most important things, because open rates are like the rising tide. If the open rates go up, everything else follows that. But in general, I think because there is so much stuff out there, Open rates today are probably a little bit lower than they were a couple years ago. But again, it's all relative, and it's understanding, an open rate in the auto industry might be a little bit different than for a bank. So it's understanding the open rates in your industry and where you're benchmarking against that. And then the last one here is talking about delivery. So I'm in stores all the time, and unfortunately all the time I hear people say, well, email's free. And it absolutely is not. It absolutely is not free. I mean, if from our standpoint, it's probably our biggest expense is the the infrastructure that we put into being able to deliver email, whether it's the servers, whether it's personnel that maintain relationships with all the IMNs, all the ISPs, because if you use Gmail or you use Yahoo Mail or Hotmail or I still see a lot of the old AOL addresses out there. You're essentially a customer of those websites or those ISPs, and they have a duty to uphold to make sure that you're not getting the inundated with the Viagra things and the prince that wants to give you all of his money and all of that. So they're paying attention to what you're sending out. So if they notice, hey, here's this ABC dealership on this IP address, and they keep hitting our servers, and no one's opening any of this, and half of the emails that they send don't even exist anymore, and they're getting bounced back. That's like not paying your bills on time, or you're only making a partial payment, or you're missing your payment, and your equity with Google or with Yahoo is going down, 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 down. And then when it's the 20th of the month and you want to do that big email blast, now you're already in hot water with them, and then now maybe you get yourself blacklisted, which is even better. So it's understanding, what impression you're giving to these different ISPs and how you're sending that out and who's sending it out on your behalf. So, there are, for the same reasons that, BMW or Hyundai or Honda make great cars, they don't make the tires, they don't make the sound systems in there, they don't make the gas that fuels them. There's other companies that do that better, and it's just kind of a nice big ecosystem. There are, email service providers out there. We are currently not an email service provider, but there are email service providers out there that help deliver these messages for you. So, so kind of part 3 to all of this is kind of walk you through just a case study, kind of tying this all together, and then the last piece is I'll share with you just some information that we found on a kind of a research project that we did initially. So, is anyone familiar with this company, backcountry.com? Well, I bet they'll get lots of hits to their website later today. But a cool company. They specialize in like outdoor clothing, outdoor equipment, and camping supplies. So let's say I'm going on a ski trip out west, and so I want to get a new pair of Vocal skis to go on this ski trip. So I go to Google and I type in all mountain Vocal skis, and Backcountry has done a good job with their SEO. So, I'm either showing up in the pay-per-click or I'm showing up somewhere on the top of the fold. So now I click on that link and I'm now magically on the Backcountry website. So they have now just captured, some important information. They understand what I actually typed into Google that brought me to the site. They understand where my geolocation is, so they know I'm now logged in at my computer in Massachusetts. And now immediately, because I was specific and I typed in a particular product name and even a type of that product, I'm now kind of flagged as a hot lead. I'm interesting to them, as opposed to I just said I'm interested in skis, or I just wound up on the website by accident. So now I go into the skiing section, and I'm toggling back and forth, and maybe after they know if within 60 seconds I don't actually select a product, I'm gone. I'm off the website, and they've lost me probably not for good, but they've lost me to probably make a purchase at that point in time. So they now have fancy algorithms that know, uh-oh, this guy is very specific, and he's now toggling back and forth, but hasn't made that selection yet. So before that magical 60-second number appears, I don't know if it's 60 seconds, it just sounded good, I made it up. But before that 60-second number appears, they might pop something up in front of me in terms of chat or in terms of, maybe some kind of an offer to keep me there. And then in this case here, it's relevant. It says, hey there, welcome to Backcountry. I'm here to answer your questions about skis. As opposed to just saying, hey, do you want to chat, or doing nothing at all. Now, conversely, if I had been on the website and I had typed in Vocal All Mountain Skis and somehow I landed in the camping section and I was looking at tents, they might actually fire an invitation at me sooner, but it's not going to say, I'm here to answer your questions about skis. It might say, hey, do you have any questions, you dummy? You can't navigate our website. But this is personalized. It's relevant, and frankly, it's appropriate. And what Backcountry knows is that when they engage people in this type of a manner, there's a 20% increase in sales over people who do it self-service. So if I had just gone to the site and I either declined that message or for whatever reason I didn't get it, I'm still going to purchase 20% more if I engage this way. More importantly, I'm going to spend about 60% more. So now instead of just buying the skis, because I'm engaging with someone, and by the way, that person that you're engaging with is probably an ex-ski instructor, so you're actually routed to someone appropriate in there, who now says, I actually have these skis. Geez, you should probably get these new bindings with it. Why don't you get some new socks? And before you know it, instead of spending a grand on skis, you just hit their shopping cart with $1,500 worth of stuff. Huge increase in customer service scores because it's a much better experience. I didn't have to get on the phone. I got everything all done at once. And then for the company, there's big savings just from various call deflection costs. So real quick, I'm going to just run in through some of these numbers. So just to, I guess, lend myself a little bit of credibility. So the company I work for, we've been doing this now for about a decade. We're working with somewhere in the neighborhood of just under 2,000 dealers. We work with about 4,000 customers, though, globally. So this month in the auto space, we'll send out, this slide is a couple months old, so we're probably getting closer to 30. We'll touch about 30 million automotive consumers on behalf of our 1,800-odd customers every month. And then as a company, we'll send out close to 1 billion emails this year. But these are all, individual newsletters with content in them that people are clicking on. So there's a lot of interesting and cool information that we're tracking. So what we did is, one of the guys that actually now heads up product development for us had actually founded the division a number of years ago. He left for about a year and a half, ran digital marketing for a pretty fast, privately held dealership group out in Western Mass, and they got some stores in Connecticut and down on the Cape. Did that for about a year and then came back to run product. So he actually is on the board of this dealership group. So for the past, 3 or 4 months, we did a study with them where we looked at all of the activity and the marketing that we've helped them do. And then we looked back, and we now, with integration that we have in with the DMS systems, we look back on about 5 years' worth of data within the DMS systems. And so what we are looking for is just trying to find some clear patterns that's got a path back to ROI. And then the next thing we'll start looking at is incremental lift. So before I share any of this stuff, who hasn't been, and I worked on your side of the table for a number of years, and we've all had the conversation, or if anyone else is a vendor, the conversation where it says, well, geez, because of us, you had all these people that came into your service department. And so it would be disingenuous for us to assume that all of this stuff is solely because of us. And that's why we want to get to understanding this incremental lift stuff. But here's the way that we kind of really identified all of this. So in the process of how we looked at the marketing is there's really the 4 different phases. So the awareness phase was just simply where people opening up and clicking on these different campaigns or this particular email. The consideration phase was there was unique dealership website clicks. So they were driving back into the dealership or into the profit centers of the dealership. And then from the decision phase, they were clicking on coupons or specials or very targeted information that was in there. And then that went into the purchase phase. So again, a lot of words here. So let me just kind of give you the punchlines here. Is what we found is in that first, at the highest level of the funnel, people were about just a little under 3 times more likely to purchase a vehicle than people that were in the database who didn't engage in this type of marketing information. And then there was about a 10% increase on how much money they spent over the control group, if you will. And then when you work all the way down here to the decision phase, when people are really engaging in stuff, they're almost 6 times more likely to purchase a vehicle and a much higher spend per order. Same type of patterns that we saw on the service end. So what we found out of this and kind of the realization in here is, and we agree with the comments before, that content is king. When it comes to the analytics, is the open rate is king. The content is queen, and we think that mobile is the prince. So, but ultimately, it's the open rate is what drives all the other metrics. And it predicts the future sales in services purchases. So we know that people that are opening things on a regular basis are 3 times more likely to purchase than if they're not. And so taking this, now we're going to have the ability to take this information and start doing more targeted stuff to these people. So now we're finding where the salmon are running, and now we're starting to cast our flies in that area. And again, this, I apologize for this. I meant to take this out. I was going to say customized content, but in this case, it's original content that's specific to the dealership has an even stronger effect. So and then the mobile engagement, coupon engagement is actually the highest. So the average service or the ROI is going up by about 23% through mobile. So, and then equally as important, just from a feedback standpoint, is past performance strongly predicts future performance. So if people are opening that up, they're going to open it up again. And one of the closing things here is, so we will write different types of articles. So there's, we'll typically write vehicle content, we'll have regional destination content, and then there's always like lifestyle content. And a lot of times you hear, well, why do you have this article about, Justin Bieber, or this, a seemingly, innocuous article? Why is that in there? And a lot of times we scratch our head and we say, we don't know. But what we found is because it's that constant engagement. So if you just bought a car, you just serviced your car, you don't care about the service specials or new leasing specials, but you like to engage in things. So what we found is people that look at the kind of the fluffy entertainment stuff are 70% more likely to open up the next email than somebody who didn't click on that stuff. So just some interesting stuff out there. I mean, I literally just saw this data for the first time just the other day. So that wraps it up. So thank you.